Here we go. So Ben's team was like, yes, I can fit a 25-pound turkey up there. And now she's in the ICU.
Okay, well, suffice to say, greetings, everyone. And no, Realist will not be joining us, but probably not for that specific reason. I understand they're gathering the strength to make the next stress test particularly hurty, and I am working on countermeasures accordingly. Greetings! I am joined, as you can see, by Angry Froman and Zoom. And that's about it at present, though if anyone else wants to join, the link is in the usual place. Those of you who are greetings, Burning Bee in chat, and I suppose that's actually about everyone, so... Hello. Well, this is what being almost 2 weeks out of your routine gets you. For good. Welcome to the Saturday Open Mic Article 8. This is a new set. It's been overdue to be made, and I did it. And it's incomplete. It will be improved upon.
I see you're going for the
so far.
The insane asylum. Like it's a take on a padded cell, right?
Well, look, strictly speaking, it is a cell, but it's a simulation cell. And yes, I'm using a security camera as a set camera, but that's besides the point. And honestly, it's pretty cool in context, even if it is a bit physically cramped in practice. But
you're going to be simulating friends in there? I'm sorry, that was mean.
I'm already simulating friends in this call. Why would I need to do it in the simulation?
Are your friends with you
itself?
Now? He's also simulating patience in this call.
Rapidly, and the production is not keeping up with demand. Welcome, additionally, Brian Yoder and Yaps, it's me. I'm so glad you could all make it to my grand return to the online-ish limited elite audience stage. And furthermore, agreed. Moving on. Greetings, Green Badger Outdoors. Glad you could make it. I hope, how have you all handled my absence? You haven't missed me too badly? Well, no one cares what you think at this point, Freeman. You missed me terribly while I was gone, did you?
Nope, not in the least. Nice relaxing week.
My showers went up, but beyond that.
What, a whole week of not having to help blowing off steam or miss steam, figure out how to get Victorian England internet to work? Of course it was relaxing without you.
Fair. Again, greetings, chat. I hope you didn't... Okay, thank you. Yes, it's me, thank you. Someone actually missed me out there. But don't worry, here on out, you probably shouldn't have to miss me in the future, as my regular schedule will resume, including stress test, although I believe that they're starting that about an hour later, hence for not certain on that bit, so probably shouldn't make any promises. I'll try to give those a minute anyway. I suppose we can get started with the new routine. If you see me sitting down, I've turned 1084 into a novelty chair, and I'm very proud about that. Also, they're being tormented with the Tesla coil, but like I was hoping for a bit more anger flailing around, maybe some indications of pain, but it seems to be mostly paralytic, and I'm okay with that, really. I'm okay with that.
1084 have nerves?
They are classically paranormal, so One, I suppose, if so, rather figurative, if anything. Greetings, Whitechapel 88. And is Ark inside of a hologram room or something? No, technically, simulation room, not a holodeck, as from is implied. Holodecks are much cooler and more versatile. That said, in the humble context of this reality, this is going to prove incredibly useful. It's going to be the basis of all my sets going forward, because it can regenerate them all once I design them in a virtual space nicely. Oh, we have a donation. Brian donated $20 to encourage my efforts, with a message following, perhaps you could use this to hire better friends. Message befriended.
Look, if he was hiring friends, he could probably do better than us to begin with.
I can't afford
speak
to
for
hire
yourself.
friends. But your support is most fervently appreciated. I don't think I could get 20 quality friends for $20. I mean, if I was going to do that, I'd have to give them the entire $20, and my budget can't survive that. I mean, I'm generally self-sufficient in all regards. I'm not going to starve to death, but my budget for doing things like this is like shoestring. It's really quite embarrassing, and will probably get more embarrassing in the future as I am running afoul of zero more than ever. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like anyone believes this tech actually exists, so... In any case, thank you very much, Brian, for your support and your generous donation. Greetings. No, actually, no one new is here. Quality. South Korea to launch task force on banning dog meat. This comes from Bloomberg.com, which really wants me to buy a subscription. Seoul, South Korea on Thursday said it will launch task force to consider outlawing dog meat consumption after the country's president offered to look into ending the centuries-old practice. Restaurants that serve dog meat are dwindling in South Korea as young people find dog meat a less appetizing dining option, and pets are growing in popularity. Recent surveys indicate that more people oppose banning dog meat, even if many don't eat it. So, South Koreans have decided to officially stop eating dogs. I can only assume this means that they're that far removed from starvation situations.
Well, I mean, yeah. You know, they probably just find something wrong with it.
Well, I think most civilized cultures don't really like eating dogs because dogs are adorable, good company, and generally have better uses than meat.
Well, you know, compared to, you know, places like China, they don't see, or they see mutton wrong with it. That was a good one, damn it.
That one, Froman.
That was a good one, damn it. That was like 3 puns in one.
Somebody get me a rolled up newspaper to hit him with.
Not going back to the sports section.
I want to feign backhanding him, but I'm also stressing that since these screens are now holographic, I have less reason than ever to pretend that I'm getting booped on the nose or pat on the head or any other sort of thing, and ergo I shouldn't expect anyone to expect I'm doing that to them. But suffice to say, yes, increasingly, in South Korea even, dog food will not involve actually eating dogs.
What about rat on a stick? That's still the same?
You know, they make no mention of that, and honestly, that might bother me more because I like rats. And yes, that is a dad joke. It's a pun, in fact, and it's what Froman does to make us all pay for not being him. Fun fact, if anyone wants to see the new Disney movie, Disney Jungle Cruise featuring The Rock, it is the closest The Rock or Froman will ever get to being The Rock or Froman. I mean, the opening set just involves largely people being hurt with puns, and if that's not Froman, I don't know who Froman is.
I don't know who I am most of the time.
The person who hurts people with puns and cringe implications of familial relation.
Of course, baby.
In any case, restaurant, in a statement, 7 government officers, including the Agriculture Ministry, said they decided to launch the group compromising officials, civilian experts, and people from related organizations to deliver recommendations on possibly outlawing dog meat consumption. It said authorities will gather information on dog farms, restaurants, and other facilities while examining public opinion. Information on dog farms. So somewhere in South Korea, there's a dog meat farm.
If
Still,
very
for the
few
time
people
being.
actually ate it, I feel like an actual farm for it would have not been,
I
you
think.
know, yeah.
There is just something of a shame really in having a dog farm where other cultures might have had a dog park. You know, but hold on. I think we're being terribly unfair to the South Koreans on this point, and the Asians who eat dogs in general. After all, doesn't America have a problem with an overpopulation of dogs in dog facilities? I mean, rather than just having PETA placate sociopaths by murdering them all gratuitously, why shouldn't they just, you know, make them into something foodish? It seems a bit practical. I mean, otherwise the meat's just going to waste, isn't it?
Yeah.
You would think, at the very least, if humans aren't inclined to eat the dogs, and I don't blame them for not wanting to, they could grind the meat up and then make it into cat food, which I'm pretty sure cats would find hilarious.
I don't know if dogs would actually provide the proteins cats would need, though. Ironically.
Pigs would take it, though. Although, I think dogs might actually have more protein than your average, like,
Well,
fish.
cats require a specific sort of protein.
Okay,
They don't produce
that-
T3.
Greetings.
And even eating fish doesn't provide them a strong enough source of it, generally speaking.
And greetings, Nightwolf. Glad you could join us. We're discussing the pros and cons of feeding dogs to cats. Not just any dogs, the unwanted dogs. I mean, we're not going to steal your family pet, grind them up, and then feed them to your family cat. I mean, that would just be cruel and strange. But, okay, well, no one likes eating dogs, and I can see why this is gaining traction in South Korea. I'm also
See, and now I just have an idea for a blender called the Mutt Maker. It's terrible.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I suppose we can move along for a bit. As the numbers of families with pet animals has risen rapidly and public interest in animal rights and welfare has grown in our country, there have been increasing voices saying that it's difficult now to see dog meat consumption as just traditional food culture. Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum There's something wrong with Asian names, as they regularly tempt me to think that reality is just trolling me. Kim.
Yep.
Okay, occasionally, yeah.
Kim Boo-kyum.
Just makes you think, what does your name sound like in Chinese?
South Korean in this case, but honestly I'm not sure I want to know.
In Weeb.
The country's number 2 official said ahead of the state's release, the government says the initiative, the first of its kind, doesn't necessarily guarantee the banning of dog meat. The joint statement noted that public awareness of the basic right to eat preferred foods and animal rights issues are tangled in a complicated manner when it comes to dog meat consumption. Strictly speaking, they're quite right. I mean, I support individual liberty, and this includes the right to eat dog. I don't approve, per se. But I suppose if they're not just, eating them alive or torturing them to death, it's kind of hard to argue against. I mean, some cows can be really cute, but I want my hamburger.
But what if my dinner consents?
And then we're right back on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you get to meet the steak before you order it.
Do you guys, Rooster Teeth, before they, became who they are now, had a show called $1 Million But, and one of the skits that they did for it was $1 Million, but whenever you order food, your food will talk to you and plead with you not to eat it because it will sound like you're killing it while you're eating. So
see, Furman, you've indirectly stressed the point here, and greetings, by the way, Lippy, of how Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy completely overshot the goal. I don't want a sentient cow explain to me how nice its ass would be properly grilled. I don't want a sentient pig explain to me how delicious its flanks might be or how really mouth-watering its ribs could prove properly prepared. I don't want my food to talk, either in support or against of its consumption in any way, shape, or form.
Do you want your food to kick and or bite back?
No. No,
Not
I do
outside
not.
of hot sauce.
Yes. Izub raised a point. In the context of spices, I like certain hot foods in certain contexts. Not physically, though.
One could argue that, some people just like their food to be a little sweet.
And some people are okay with their food bleeding, including Nerdy Rodent. Welcome. Barnaby wants to talky food could be fun. Yeah, look, there are a bunch of people who are very angry for assorted reasons, and I suppose it can be quite cathartic to just consume food that is either pleading for mercy or daring you to do the job. That said,
now just imagine that it's pleading in an extraordinarily stereotypical way. So you're eating spaghetti, and you have a bowl of spaghetti pleading with you in a very Italian accent.
Yeah, that's not appealing in any way, shape, or form.
I find that funny.
I'm sure you do, but you're a weirdo. As are we all, in a variety of ways, to be fair. I'm certainly no champion of normality as we understand it. Most of it's absolute triviality. But no, I like my food to make no sounds other than the occasional sizzle when fresh off of the pan.
What if we're all in our simulation room?
Strictly speaking, there's no way to know. It could be the simulation room, contrary to this rudimentary appearance in this context, is so advanced that even I don't know that I'm in my own simulation room.
There's one way to find out. We need a lot of explosives.
And no one's bringing this location, so it's not that
would they be explosives or would they be simulated explosives? And would this
simulated explosives is fine. Look, I cannot be the only one here who's crashed a Minecraft server with TNT.
Shh. I've essentially blown up a computer by making a bunch of nukes.
We just need enough explosives so that the simulation has to calculate the physics. And voila, if it crashes, we're in a simulation. If it doesn't, well, we had some nice fireworks. Let's have a grill and drink some beer.
Yusuf, have you considered contacting Elon Musk and the other super billionaires who are concerned that reality is a simulation or looking to escape to run some experiments in which they can just... Look, Elon Musk can do it. He's got massive underground tunnels and holes anyway. Just one big one, fill it with TNT, and see what happens.
Ark, stop talking about Elon's holes.
If he manages to slow down reality as we can possibly measure it, we'll know something's up.
I mean, you could also argue that's what relativity is. Relativity is just universal lag.
Would that make radio telescopes basically retracing?
I guess.
What bothers me most is I think Furman's onto something there. Look, even if we all exist in a simulation, here's the lesson takeaway from that. Let's say Elon Musk, Froman, and sort of people are correct, and this is all just a really complex program being run on a computer somewhere. This means you shouldn't have contempt for AI because we're all AI, and it's, better to foster a feeling of camaraderie in that context. And to...
If we're all AI, what is I?
Intelligence, just more artificial intelligence of varying complexity.
Well, but my point is, it could be turtles all the way up. Who's to say that simulation isn't in a simulation?
That's just it. That'd be quite the experiment. No one would know. It would require a great deal of effort in various simulations. But hypothetically, there should be some baseline reality that is truly physical, in which all the simulations are based in. Although you would think that with every simulation, the processor load would be dramatically increased. Ergo, at some point, whoever's running the baseline computers needs to go, we have to click off this computer. It's getting too complex.
I believe that's what the hour limit on Google Meet is.
No, that's just trolling. Trolling by our corporate overlords. And I could be just CGI, but no one can prove it either way, and that's just fine by me. Happy Artemis. Not yet. Artemis is coming up there. I should probably do something nice for Artemis. As it is, I'm struggling to come up with something that would be nice to present as part of other compilations of Christmas skittish things. In any case, let's move on to another article, shall we? Seawind Saga pilot crashed in Lake Michigan, had 7 crashes in 7 days.
Best pilot ever.
Look, I appreciate the idea of getting back on the horse, but if you crash immediately after getting back on the horse, you should probably take some time to revisit your training before hopping right back on again.
I don't know. I think maybe you should have bought a lottery ticket. I mean, surviving 7 crashes in 7 days like that?
See, I see where you're going with that, but on the other hand, if he survived 7 crashes 7 days, I'm thinking he probably didn't actually get that high up before fucking up.
Maybe.
From Charlevoix. A small amphibious airplane is on the bottom of Lake Michigan after crashing during the 4th of July weekend, but fasten your seatbelts because the pilot says how it got there is one barnstorm of a story. Dennis Collier, a licensed Traverse City pilot, paid $110,000 for the 2010 Seawind on Saturday, ended up in the drink a week later, and on the way crashed by his own account 7 times in 7 days in 4 states. Oh yeah, it's a hell of a story, Collier said, of his plan to fly solo from the west coast to Boyne City. From the California to the UP, everyone kept telling me I was lucky to be alive. Collier wanted to capture the experience while it was fresh in his mind, so he wrote a first-person account in case it had any motion picture potential. The Federal Aviation Mission, the U.S. Coast Guard, and Michigan State Police all perform various response investigative functions at his crashes too, so the information adds to the narrative. Then there's the 88-year-old pilot who built the airplane and sold it to Collier, the inhospitable Sagegrass in Mexico, the airport manager who once worked for Virgin Galactic, and the Michigan State Police troopers who helped with the hydraulics. With that baggage packed, let's prepare for departure. On June 25, Collier flew commercial, landing at Los Angeles' LAX, where Lynn Swan, the retired pilot, airplane builder, and self-described grumpy old man who advertised the Seawind 3000 for sale, was there to meet him. The 2 aviators drove from Los Angeles to the foothills of San Gabriel Mountains and Brackett Field Airport, coincidentally the filming location of Airport 74, where Charlton Heston saved the passengers. It's also the filming location of the sequel to Airport. Get to the point, you writers. We'll just skip a little bit ahead. At the time, he was excited about the purchase. The later said he didn't think the condition of the plane had been properly conveyed to him. Collier said in his diary that he didn't notice the instrument and other repairs were needed, and surmised Swan used Collier's $4,000 deposit to make some, but not all, of these. Swan says that while the plane hadn't been flown for 2 years, a pilot friend had taken it for a test flight, and the aircraft was ship-shape with only 20 hours of flying time in the engine. I went to get some supplies and told me he could wait for me or take off, Swan said. I came back and he was already lined up to take off, and I figured, okay, cool. Collier said, nope, it wasn't. Not for him. Not cool at all. So, Crash 1. No. I raided the tower for a test flight over the airport, Collier wrote, climbing to 500 feet above the pattern altitude, doing left-hand turn, staying with the airport's landing pattern. After the first try, I noticed the nose up without inputs. I set up for landing the third time around, and very so Collier landed gear up, and while he escaped injury, the sea wind got pretty banged up. Swan said it would have been worse if he hadn't installed a block of wood under the front of the plane, and that 2 inches of solid oak took the brunt of the impact. Collier said Swan and his hangar buddies helped make repairs, after which Collier said he felt abandoned. This is Crash 1. One of
This
7.
plane shouldn't have gotten off the ground, from what I'm understanding so far.
Having a sinking feeling this was it, I had to go, Collier said. Next stop, Beaver, New Mexico, and Collier's first night landing in 20 years. It was 3:22 a.m. and the descent did not go well. Crashes 2 and 3. The airplane stalled and came down hard and to the left of the runway and into the weeds and bumpy sage grasses, Collier said. Dawn broke the next morning on an ugly view. Collier, who had again escaped injury, learned he'd wiped out a sign and some runway lights and did a number on the Sea Wind's tail. Plus, staff with Four Corners Airport in San Juan County had called the FAA. A test flight ended in another runway incident, said Mike Lewis, airport manager. We're square, Lewis said. We called the FAA, filed a report. From what I understand, the damage was anything that would make the airplane unflyable. FAA spokesperson Tony Molinaro said the agency does not comment on ongoing investigations, though Collier has said he did talk with an investigator. After leaking the explanation of landing in the dark without a landing light, the FAA was satisfied with my explanation, Collier said. The investigator said at least he hadn't been busting any airspace parameters, Collier added. FAA records showed there's restricted airspace between California and Mexico, including of Disneyland, the White Sands Missile Range, and the Nevada Test and Training Range at Edwards Air Force Base, more popularly known as Area 51. Well, fortunately for him, he didn't crash there.
Well, he didn't try to land there either.
It
That seems
that
to be the repeated process here of goes to land and messes up.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that Mr. Collier here really sucks at landing in general. Just a suspicion. And to be fair, this isn't common knowledge, but
Well, look,
I once
anything
nearly got my
that you can
pilot
walk
license.
away from isn't a crash, or whatever the rule is.
Well, any crash you walk away from, or any landing you walk away from, is a good landing.
Yes, could certainly be worse. You know, I've had time in a private plane. I once nearly got my private license. You know, landing is the hard part. It's all good fun up until then. That said, when you're very old and potentially senile, and you've caught a completely jury-rigged piece of crap plane, maybe you should stop trying to land it. And ergo, also try not to fly it either.
Yeah, that's the key part.
If it goes up, it has to come down one way or another. But on the bright side, I have to note this: at least he wasn't taking any passengers up. In any case,
Yeah, I feel like they'd survive as well as the plane does.
Collier, who said he'd flown regularly years ago, previously built his own plane. "I am a mechanic," he told himself. "I can do this." On July 2nd, Collier was airborne again in crashes 4 and 5. "My plan was to go north along the western slope of the Rockies to avoid the approaching front from Taos, New Mexico, to Chicago, and east was not the way to go to the mountains," Collier said. He ran into a rain squall, but the plane performed well enough for Collier to engage the autopilot using rivers and highways as navigational aids. Turning east after about 2 hours in the air, slicing the sky over America's breadbasket, however, Collier again encountered trouble. The left wing's servo hinge tab was stuck, he said, and the nose of the plane kept pitching up. When it got worse, Collier put a rag between his knee and the yoke steering wheel and pushed as hard as he could toward Nebraska. There was stalling, there was skipping through the rough, and there was crisscrossing the runway after 4 attempts. 4 attempts to land again. Recurring theme, landing. Collier said he landed at O'Neill Municipal Airport in Holt County. "I forced it to the ground and off in the grasses and eventually back on the runway and taxied to a waiting golf cart. And the airport manager and wife team got me to calm down from the shaking." The team was Al and Natalie Sibby, who both suggested Collier to separate himself from his purchase. He on a commercial flight, the Seawind on a flatbed, but both bound for Michigan. When that idea didn't fly, the Sibbies put Collier up, fed him, found a hangar for him to use, and loaned him a jacket and some tools.
I just don't like how you're glossing over those puns.
That's the old bag from it. I try to avoid that. A test flight ended another crash, Collier said, but he went back to work on the plane and found and fixed some crossed wires. On July On July 3rd at 7 a.m., Collier was more than ready to put Nebraska below and behind him, quote unquote. "I opened the hangar door and attempted to push the Seawind out," Collier said. "Getting a few feet, I decided to just fire up and get going. Taxiing out the runway and with full power lifted eastward in the morning sun." Sibby said he's known many pilots with get-home-itis, and Collier was one of those. Takeoff, the climb, and autopilot cruise of South Dakota and Minnesota at 7,500 feet, wind fine. 5 hours out of Nebraska, he passed Escanaba and saw Schoolcraft County Airport in Manistee about 5 miles off. Then something went quote-unquote clunk. The hydraulic pressure gauge was registering 0, Collier said, and the fuel gauge showed an uneven supply. He raided the airport, asked whether there was a spotter on the ground who could look up as he passed and let him know if the landing gear was down. No response. The engine sputtered, the gauge showed less than 4 gallons of fuel, and Collier said he was pretty sure the landing gear under the nose wasn't down. "I landed with both mains and held off as long as I could, and the nose hit and the plane skidded down the runway a few hundred yards to the stop at the edge of the pavement, but well before you hit the runway," Collier said, once again failing to actually manage a landing. No injuries, the damage was reparable, and while Collier didn't see anyone around, no golf cart reception this time, the terminal was within walking distance and the doors were unlocked. Collier said he went in, sat down and considered his lot. His plane was dinged and out of fuel, his cell phone was shut off, and he hadn't seen a soul. Cue the Angel Choir, because there, across the street, gleaming in the sunshine, was a welcoming, log-themed motel. Holiday Motel Manistee co-owner Pat Mead let Collier use his phone, knew a store that sold hydraulic oil, and drove Collier there. "A lot of pilots stay here," said Collier Mead, and March who bought the hotel with her husband. "He didn't take him to get the hydraulic oil, owning a hotel to get requests. Sometimes they don't have to do with booking a room." Collier arrived at the Schoolcraft Municipal at the same time as the Michigan State Police, he on foot, MSP in a cruiser with lights on and sirens. Lieutenant Mark Mark Giannunzio. Why is America obsessed with diversity when it's pretty evident that America is diversity?
Because a lot of crazy people want to use it as nothing more than a shoehorn.
Yeah, that makes sense. An assistant MP post commander said troopers were dispatched to the airport to check out the report that someone's landing gear wasn't working properly. At the scene, MSC turned the incident over to the FAA, Jin Nunzio said. Collier writes in his diary that troopers interviewed him and loaned him a phone to call the FAA. Once again, I was on the phone talking to them, explaining what had occurred. FAA spokesperson Molinaro said the agency couldn't comment on this investigation either. The troopers drove Collier out of the Seawind and held up the nose so he could add a quart of hydraulic oil. Later, when reflecting on the journey, the face of the two troopers would add to those people who'd helped along the way. Everyone cares, Collier said to the general aviation community. They take you under their wing and into their hangar. Mind you, sort of making an argument for why they shouldn't.
Yeah.
After a week of bumps, clunks, and official inquiries from air and land authorities, Collier was finally near his goal, landing his plane in Boyne City. He checked the fuel gauge and looked inside the tanks and realized the gauge was flipped. The tank that read empty was full, the tank that read full was nearly empty. Perhaps the pump failed, Collier thought. Maybe that was the source of the clunk. He called a relative who offered use of a credit card. Collier refueled and taxied to the runway. Already I'm thinking we owe this lake a debt of gratitude. Crash 7. The plane was to head south of Lake Michigan, Beaver Island, Charlevoix, and land at the Boyne Municipal Airport. Per his promise to the FAA, Collier wrote in his diary that he'd leave the landing gear down for the 25-minute flight. It was July 3rd, and as luck would have it, President Joe Biden was visiting. Let's go, Brandon. And Collier had to wait for the TFR, or temporary flight restriction, to be lifted before he could depart. Back in Nebraska, Al Sidney said he was still thinking about what aircraft accident investigators call the Swiss cheese model. Every airplane mishap that puts a hole in the slice of the plane is more holes than cheese. At 7:20 p.m., FlightWare, an air travel database, shows the Seawind over Manistee. At 7:59, the plane disappears from radar. That was about the time Collier said the engine sputtered and he smelled something burning. He'd just passed Beaver Island, and I shouldn't have worn the chemical gloves today, clearly. That was about time. He just passed Beaver Island. The wing flaps weren't responding. The hydraulic pressure gauge read nil. Collier said he had no choice but to attempt his first water landing. I glanced back over the water and realized I could judge my altitude with the glittering of the sun of this small pool of water, Collier said. Time seemed to slow when I was transfixed on the beauty of the sun over the water. I could see it coming and it was really close. But, per his promise to the FAA, the landing gear was still down. The gear caught the water, the plane went forward, and with a big splash went nose down vertically and into the water. For a few seconds, Collier said he was staring straight down into the deep. Then the plane popped up. Collier sent a distress call, checked himself for injuries, again none, and tried to focus. The plane was built like a boat. It would float, right? He'd wait for rescue, get the plane towed to shore, fix it again. Fortunately, the water had other ideas.
Thank God.
Collier isn't sure how much time passed before he saw a U.S. Coast Guard rescue boat headed his way, but by then the cockpit was full of water, the plane was sinking, his shoes, hat, landing light, and new headset were floating away, reminiscent of a scene from Titanic, if Titanic had hinged entirely upon the incompetence of the boat makers and all of the crew. Which I suppose it did, actually. Never mind. A Coast Guard helicopter circled overhead. Collier was by now perilously perched on the tail. He lifted his head from his hands and gave them a wave. Minutes later, he was aboard the rescue boat. When news the plane had crashed and sunk reached New Mexico, Lewis shared a theory. The hull of the plane had likely been breached during one of the crashes. That seems like a pretty solid hypothesis.
Hell, I don't think it was intact before the crashes at this
I'm
rate.
pretty skeptical myself, really. Collier gave a statement in the MSP, was checked by Charlevoix Hospital, emergency room physicians, and released in the wee hours on the 4th of July. He said he was happy to be alive. And I'm just happy he didn't kill anyone else.
Yeah. Any one of these could have ended with him inside a building.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else have that scene from the the World According Garp going through their head? Asks Rhinoder, and possibly, but not in my case. I'm not that familiar with the movie now you mention it. I should probably watch it again at some point.
Of course, all those sort of flyboys like that end up doing crazy stuff. I live near an airport, and I constantly have parachutists like gliding over places they shouldn't be and landing in things they shouldn't. Last year I had a power outage because one idiot landed in the power lines on the road outside my house.
Some good news, everyone. If this were a movie, a director might be tempted to employ poetic license and have Collier somehow, some way, fly off in the white blue yonder as the credits roll, which would not be a happy ending in my opinion, as once the credits roll, he's probably going into an orphanage. But Collier said the Sea Wind wasn't insured, and the experience was so traumatic, this, 7th incident, he doesn't see himself piloting an airplane again. So, good news!
Little miracles.
Yay! I think it's time to pick up a new hobby other than flight. And that plane at the bottom of that lake is surely the safest it has ever been. Assuming we can blame the plane, but given the regularity in which he botched landings, I'm sorry, I'm not really inclined to throw this at the fault entirely of the plane. But wow, what a seeming disaster. Let's go, Brandon. And for a bit of an article that probably doesn't really need to be mentioned, but just a reminder, not all cultures are equal. South African schoolboy, aged 9, has apparently successfully married a 62-year-old woman for a second time, as reported by themirror.co.uk.
I'd like to point out it does say groom, which I guess is the proper word.
Oh yes, she groomed him up proper, clearly.
Well, I mean, it's Africa, so is he robbing the grave or is she robbing the cradle?
I'm going to say she's robbing the cradle here because she's the only one who's legally culpable by most society standards.
There's also the fact that somehow this is the second time.
We're going to learn more about that, and with some dread. But first, though, we need to switch to a new call because...
Come on it.
And I've just botched it. That's fine. What's the worst that can happen? Again, why did I choose the chemical gloves? Geez, I'm out of practice. It was only nearly 2 weeks. Not that long. Not that long at all. How could I get so rusty in not quite 2 weeks? It's absolutely... Hello!
Welcome back, honey. There's the link.
Much appreciated. Everything is wrong and I only have myself to blame, unlike Collier, who blames the plane. Call adjusted. There we go. Now we're clear for quite possibly a full second hour. Thank you for your tolerance.
I could have just opened this up in a Brave.
Could have, yes.
It actually probably would work better with your set, too.
I'm skeptical it would have made a huge difference, but suffice to say, if everyone's reasonably content with how this is working out,
I'm talking about aesthetics, but yes.
let's just move on to this. Sania Misela kissed his wife and said he loves her despite the huge age gap that has stunned villagers who described the marriage as quote-unquote sickening, but apparently there are enough villagers who don't feel that way that they were able to actually pull this off. 9-year-old Sania Misela has become the world's youngest groom for the second time after remarrying the 6-year-old woman he tied the knot with last year.
High-profile weddings never last.
Dressed in a silver tuxedo, baby-faced Sene, which is apt because he's 9 years old. He's basically a baby.
I guess the last one ended on a temper tantrum.
Clutched the hand of mother of 5, Helen Shabangu. Her children are aged between 28 and 38 years old. Helen Shabangu.
That is...
Helen Shabangu.
You know what? That's it. Africa's the new Alabama. Because you now have a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds that have to call a 9-year-old dad.
Man, Thanksgiving. Well, they don't have Thanksgivings there, I presume. Otherwise, whatever family get-togethers they have there have to be just intensely awkward.
Stay away from those shebangus.
Avoid the shebangus.
It works!
Avoid the shebangus. No, apparently this is not from London. This is from mirror.co.uk. So they possibly botched it. Maybe they've been duped. Certainly the modern journalists are not that clever, but...
I'm also seeing it on Fox and healthychildren.org. I guess.
They repeated their vows.
It's on a few different.
A year on, which means that she technically officially married him when he was 8. All the difference is significant for the sheer horror of it. They repeated their vows a year on in front of 100 guests who apparently accepted and have no issue with it, which tells me this village isn't nearly as... No. The schoolboy says he did to make the marriage official, but other villagers in Zimbabwe, in Mpumalanga, South Africa, describe it as quote-unquote sickening. The ceremony where guests shared a piece of cake took place in front of Helen's long-term husband, Alfred
Cooked by a
Shabangu,
9-year-old.
66, who was there last year as well.
There's a way that we could get around this. Did the kid subscribe to PewDiePie?
Does this keep getting better or does this keep getting worse? I'm not quite sure.
She has another husband, so this is polyandry, who's 66 and is apparently just fine with this.
You know, I'm just thinking, what does the 9-year-old bring to the table that you don't? A childlike sparkle in your eye?
Alfred Shabangu, 66, who was there last year as well, said, quote-unquote, my kids are happy because we don't have a problem with her marrying the boy, and I don't care what other people have to say.
I'm guessing they withheld his meds till he agreed.
Both families claim the wedding is simply another ritual. After Sane was told by his dad ancestors to wed last year, and his parents forked out 500, whatever the hell that is, and another 1,000, whatever, for the ceremony.
Probably about $5.
But the schoolboy, the youngest of 5 children, wanted to follow South African tradition and insisted they have the second ceremony this week to make their marriage official. Okay. Apparently, he was told this by his dead ancestors, so my takeaway is that South Africa desperately needs Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Ghostbusters!
That actually looks like a pound sign.
Alternatively,
Pound
I'm
Shebanu?
increasingly tempted to just say we should glass South Africa. I think it might be for the best. And I say this with apologies to some people I know who are in South Africa who have been dealing with some real hardships there. But, you know, your suffering could be at an end. And I'm looking towards the good of humanity here. Everything about that picture is wrong, and you know, rather than being just treated as a whimsical ha ha ha, isn't that weird thing in mirror.co.uk, if they flipped the ages here, what do you think the media would do? Just wondering.
Depends on the religion.
Well, actually, if they flipped the ages, we know exactly what the media would do. They just wouldn't report on it at all, and they would just, you know, overlook it because they don't want to deal with the outrage that would result. But yes, Rhinoder, I agree. Reset the simulation. This is.
I just saw an article on BBC Pigeon. If you want me to send it.
Okay, I was wrong. They spent about $100 for the wedding. I mean, it's a bit blurry, but I believe, according to this, South Africa uses the rand, and 1,000 rand is about $61.
This isn't a Netflix reboot yet, Erica Pug. Welcome, by the way. If they did, it would be Netflix's Uggies.
So I did find an article on BBC Pigeon as a potential getaway from this. Cannabis crop. Malawi asked Mike Tyson to be the cannabis ambassador.
I'll try to clean these properly, but that does smell suspect. In any case, we don't really quite have the time for that, as we have about 8 minutes left, so we're just going to finish this disaster and hope everyone forgets it before the next show rolls around. In any case, a young groom said that he still hoped he would have a proper wedding to a woman his own age when he was older. He added,
Well, he won't have to worry about being divorced by then.
"He'll be a widower."
Oh, it's probably just for
surely.
inheritance? I mean, come on. Who else can shill out 100 big ones for a wedding?
Well, I mean, that makes it even worse. If you've married a 9-year-old for the 9-year-old to inherit over your own kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the kids aren't really going to stand for that because they can surely take him in a fight. He added, I told my mother that I want to get married because I really didn't want to. I'm happy I'm very happy. I will go to school and study hard. And when I'm older, I will marry a lady my own age. I chose her because I love her. And although we don't live together all the time, we meet at a dumping site where my mother works regularly.
Watch out.
Recycling worker Helen, who donned the same dress as last year, said, I'm very happy the bar chose me and my family support and understand that it was part of making ancestors happy. One day Snelly would grow normally and have a family of his own and get married one day. All this ceremony is for making ancestors happy. We are playing.
I'm concerned of where the ancestors' position on pedophilia is.
I don't like these ancestors. I don't care if they're alive or
Is
dead,
this-
speak from beyond the grave or not. Those ancestors fucking suck.
Is this like way back, when it was like generations of incestuous monkey rape? Is it those ancestors that we're concerned about?
Just... Sanel's 47-year-old mum, Patience Marcella. This is, by the way, another individual case that I would urge you to take into account. If you are having a daughter, don't name them after a virtue. Honestly, at this point, you'd be better off naming them Slatternly Ho. Bitch-ass skink. Because if you name them after a virtue, the one thing we can pretty much guarantee is they won't have that virtue.
Yeah.
I think Terry Pratchett absolutely nailed it. Don't name kids after virtues. If you're going to name them after something, give them a name as a vice. It'll build character.
Boy named Sue?
All right, alcoholism. Get your ass in here.
Yo, Alco! Did you finish your homework? Junkie! Junkie!
I'm getting
Dinner
from this,
time!
I should name my kid Autism?
Anger problems! Get this laundry to your room! I think it'll probably work out better. Any case.
Oh man, wait till you do with rapist in your class.
See, that's when they introduce themselves. Yeah, my name is Rap. Yeah, it's because my family loved beatboxing, you see.
Yeah. Or go by your middle name at that point.
The best.
Well, now you have to have fun with the middle name, too.
Sanel's disappointing mum patient said Sanel was fine and he was happy about the ceremony last year and what he wanted. He was not shy. He was just happy to get married and very excited. Was not embarrassed about it. So much so he wanted to do it again. After the wedding last year, people keep asking him a question like, will they live together, sleep together, have babies? But I keep telling him that after the wedding, everything went back to normal. Nothing changed. Sanelli moved to Vendit not long after the wedding because he wanted to learn language, but they are very close. Our families are very close. It was a nice celebrate with a wedding once more. It was, after all, calling from the ancestors. By doing this, we made the ancestors happy. And if we hadn't done what my son had asked, then something bad would have happened in the family.
Yes, this is so much better.
So this is just a child sacrifice?
Turning to the most popular US girl's name, Giorina Floyd. If that's true, then by the same time, this my boy's name will be Kyle.
Based.
It should really. I mean, egads that.
Oh, I mean, it was already in the top 10 for 80s.
Yeah.
Well, about time for it to come around again. We have 2 minutes remaining before I shut things down. Thank you all for attending this in pseudo-inaugural resumption of my regular viewing schedule. I hope you've enjoyed the new set. Fun things are coming on that point. I plan on streaming more aggressively here on out, especially once I finish creating the game streaming set, which is forthcoming. Now that I've got access to the simulation room, things are guaranteed to get entertainingly weird. But it's a bit more of a hassle to program than I initially assumed, so...
Well,
it's fine.
Entertainingly weird. I think that's a great segue for SideQuest, the video game.
Why, yes. As a fact, Froben here has made and released via Steam SideQuest, the video game. You can play it yourself, even now, on Steam, or you could possibly win a key over the course of one of these future side quests. The keys have been presented to Gog, I have no idea if he's run a competition for that yet, but we will get them out by hook or by crook eventually. Meanwhile, Froman, if you have a link to that game, now would be a great time to throw it in chat because you have permission to do such things.
Well, I shall get that going right away there, buckaroo.
In the meantime, Izub, what have you been up to? What is upcoming?
Well, as usual, if you want to catch more of myself and my two co-hosts, Blackout and Rat, you can catch us on the Reservoir Slobs channel, where we also have some canned content coming, where we've ranked all of the movies we watched in the last year and a quarter, roughly. Something like 120 movies. Also, possibly a supercut of our cold opens on Rad.
That's probably really fascinating. I can just see that really having some rewatchability. Any case, and that about wraps things.
You need to take like one still image of Rat every Reservoir Slobs and see if you can make an animation with it. Like composite them into the average. Ooh, an alignment chart for the smoking rat. Like all of them are just him confused.
Actually, you know what, Froman, that's not too bad an idea. And if you're inclined to, well, next time I see Rat, I'm going to suggest this myself because I think most of the side quest cast have had Night Beast make alignment charts for their characters. Certainly, one's been done for Arcturus, that jackass, and Pentagas would be well added to the lot. But in any case, we are over schedule. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, so long as progress continues, success is inevitable. Egad, what else could have gone wrong? Well, probably a lot, actually. I shouldn't complain. I'm still hearing. Yeah, this tell me.
Yep.
Cheers. And we're out.